Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Star Wars Alliance, your home on Geek Ultimate Alliance Podcast Network for any and all things Star Wars. I'm your host, as always, Katie, and joining me tonight is the one and only co-host, well, one of the co-hosts of Marvel Alliance, Brent. Brent, how are you doing today?
I am good. I'm making my Star Wars Alliance debut.
Yes.
Little last minute planning on our part, but it worked out. I'm here, so I'm ready to have a good time.
Yes. Kate from But Why Though was supposed to join, but she had some stuff come up. So we are gonna reschedule her because she was very excited to talk about the show. So, but yeah, glad you could step in, Brent, and make your debut. And
Yes.
has everybody been on Star Wars Alliance now?
I
I
don't
think
know.
so.
I don't keep track of those things.
I know. I just I have to go back and look, but I think everybody has actually. So, anyways. Okay. So tonight, y'all, we are going to be talking about Damon Lindelof's secret Star Wars film that is rumored to be taking place after the sequel trilogy, and the director they boarded onto that film, and why they chose to board a director so early. But then we're also going to be talking about Andor episode 9. But before we get into all of that goodness, gracious things, I do have to hit the podcast paperwork side of things. Star Wars Alliance is part of the Ultimate Alliance Podcast Network. You can find all 8 shows linked in the description box below. There are 3 ways to support us as a podcast. The very first way is via Patreon, where we have 2 tiers. The $5 tier gets y'all ad-free episodes, exclusive episodes, and any early episodes we may drop. The second way to support us is by listening to the ads. We are an ad-supported show, ad-supported network. Those ads help keep us here, help keep the Kyber Crystals trend here. I will give you a warning before those are to occur, but just so you know now, we don't get to choose who the ads are from, nor how many times you hear the same ad in the same episode, nor how loud those ads are. So we're just help you prepare those volume levels. Uh, the third and final way to support us is by rating and reviewing us on your favorite podcatcher of choice. Those reviews help put us into the feeds of other listeners who may not be following us on social media. Uh, and there are you can rate Star Wars Alliance on its own feed, or you can rate the group feed because we're posting episodes on both. Again, we greatly appreciate it. Uh Last but certainly not least, we will be talking about spoilers for Andor episode 9 today, and I should change the background because I forgot. Um, so yeah. Uh it I words. I got distracted and I did it. Um So we'll transition into that topic before we go to it. There will also be timestamps in the description box below to let y'all know when we make the jump into the episode discussions. But obviously, feel free to come back if you haven't watched it after you've watched it, because this is the place to be. Um, I do have one final thing. I obviously did not announce the giveaway winners last week. I'd like to do so right now, because I did it this afternoon. The first winner was David Reese, and David is one of our patrons. So David, shout out to you. Thanks for
Yeah.
participating. And then the other one is Tony L, whose username on Twitter is at TONZO2.
Yes.
Still waiting to hear back from him. So yes. But again, everybody, thanks for participating. Uh, and yeah, so I did do that, and I'll make a Twitter post once I hear back from Tony just to like confirm everything. If I don't hear back from him by this weekend, we may do another post to give that one away. So with that, let us jump right into it. Um, so on a couple weeks ago, I don't remember exactly what day, because obviously we had 100th episode last week with Andor and Tales of the Jedi. So we had a lot going on, so we didn't really talk about news. But Damon Lindelof is writing a secret Star Wars film for Lucasfilm, obviously, and they have tapped Miss Marvel's Charmin Obaid Chinoy. I totally screwed that up.
I'm not gonna judge you for it.
I'm sorry. Um, no, so Lindelof is co-writing the film. We don't know who the co-writer is, but they did want to bring the director on board early so that the director could have their vision enveloped in the script. What did you think about
I mean, that's a great idea. You can't be upset at all with them bringing a director in at this point in the game to play a part in it. You know, it's not always how they do it, but this director did two of the episodes of Miss Marvel. I went back to double check. It was the two episodes I thought it was. It was. It's episodes 4 and 5, Seeing Red, and then Time and Again. And while I won't
Mhm.
necessarily say they were my favorite episodes of Miss Marvel, I did enjoy them. And Time and Again, especially the first 2/3 of that episode were set in the past, and it was very different episode. And the way that one was handled, I really, really did enjoy that a lot. So I think this is great. I'm open to seeing what they're going to do with Star Wars. I think it's really interesting that they're actually going to go forward in time. It feels like for the first time in a long time, they're going to move
Yeah.
the overall narrative forward. So yeah, I'm into it.
And it was curious to see because Charles Soule, who has been writing for Star Wars comics for quite some time and is a part of the High Republic, he wrote his 100th comic, and it's basically scripts from all of his, well, okay, not all, but like some of his different stories. So like he wrote one for his Darth Vader, Obi-Wan and Anakin. And then one he wrote was for Poe Dameron because he had 5 volumes set for him. And that one was actually post Rise of Skywalker. And that's actually the first post sequel trilogy story we've gotten. So to get that cleared, it does show, I think Clay and I talked about this actually, it shows that they're trying to move in that direction of giving us stories with those characters. And we had heard rumors that Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, and Oscar Isaac were being talked to about returning. So it makes sense. I will be definitely interested to see it. I know I'd love to see Daisy Ridley start her Jedi Order off. So
Yeah, Daisy Ridley. That she would, bringing Ray back would probably be my preference of those three characters. If you could only have one, I probably
mhm.
would go towards her first. But I'm just surprised to even hear there's conversations with the others because Boyega and Isaac. It's like it seems like they were less than thrilled with their overall Star Wars experience for those three movies, and maybe it's just one of those things of a little time away is healing the wounds. I don't know. I hope they come back. I think that'd be great. Obviously, Oscar Isaac's doing the Moon Knight thing right now, but make some time for Poe also. There's no reason you can't do both. Like just I think it'd be great if they were to come back. And as much as I am absolutely loving the TV shows and stuff we've been getting, they have all been set in the past basically. And
Yeah.
it is I like the idea of giving us some. I know they've done like comics and books or whatever, but like some stuff like in the movies moving forward, like moving the ball forward. I really really like that idea.
Yeah, and, I say Boyega. Boyega did say in, the Woman King interviews he was doing, that he didn't have any interest in coming back to it, but he said for years, like, "Oh, I've talked with Kathleen Kennedy and stuff." So there are conversations there. It'll be interesting to see what happens, and, yeah, I really liked, the past episode for Miss Marvel, so I think it's a great director choice, and especially, with Rogue Squadron, Patty Jenkins' movie getting shelved. It'll be great to
Yeah,
see another woman take a director's chair for a movie and make the impact there. So,
absolutely, absolutely.
all right. Yeah, that was pretty much it. Oh, there was one other thing. It's not really like huge. I forgot to send this one to you, Brent, but it's simple. The Acolyte, which is based at the end of the High Republic, and before the Phantom Menace, it has actually started filming. So that is going at its pace. It's I That's gonna put it, I think again, spring 2024 is when everybody's predicting it to happen, and that makes sense.
I saw that one was starting to film soon or is filming. I don't know anything about it. I'll be honest. I'll be
Yeah.
honest. I don't know anything about it. I haven't read anything from the High Republic yet. I know the words. I don't really know outside what you guys have talked about on this show. I don't know anything about it. But hey,
Yeah.
I'm here for it. I'll check it out. They so far even Boba Fett I enjoyed, and I know that's the one everyone likes to crap on. So I'm like I'm still gonna check them all out.
Yeah, for those who don't know, I'll just kind of briefly summarize what we do know because we don't know a whole lot.
Yes.
It's supposed to star Amanda Stanberg, and it will be kind of like a martial arts based show. Leslie Headland, who was the showrunner I think she's still the showrunner for the Russian Doll, actually, is showrunning it, and she's brought in a lot of outside Star Wars writers. So she's brought in a lot of people who haven't seen Star Wars and done a lot of questioning of them going, hey, if you thought of Star Wars, what would you think of it? So I'm really excited for that one. And a lot of people are going, oh, okay, the Acolyte, and that's what the Sith followers we saw on Exegol and the Rise of Skywalker are called. So we could see Exegol play in, and I think we'll definitely see Palpatine play in. But who knows?
It seems like they're trying to use him as much as they can right now.
While they
I
have
feel
him,
like
yeah.
he's, yeah, I didn't want to say it, but yes, but they're using him as much as they can. He seems to be just popping up everywhere, and that's not a bad thing.
Yo. I don't think it is either. I imagine he'll make the same choice that they did that
With James Earl Jones.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I,
Yeah.
I was struggling to remember his name. Oh my gosh, I can't, that's
Such
embarrassing.
a I really haven't come to any conclusions on how I feel about that. It's just interesting, but you know he signed off on it. They can use his voice likeness to keep Darth Vader's voice alive the way we have known it all these years. I mean, hey, if the actor's okay with it, I guess ultimately who can argue with it?
You know, it's unfortunate, at least in my perspective, but if they're on board, then
Yeah,
fine.
I if they were not on board, I'd feel very sure with against it. But since they're on board, okay. That said, there is something to be said for recasting and able to just move forward with a whole new actor. But what do I know?
Yeah. All right. So moving in to Andor, episode 9, which is entitled Nobody's Listening. And I think that's a fairly apt title for this episode. Once again, it is written by Bo Willimine, and oh my gosh, who direct? I don't have that in front of me for some reason. Um, um, pause.
Is
I'm
this one
looking that up,
Susanna?
y'all.
Is this
Sorry.
Susanna White or is it Benjamin Karen?
Uh, Suzanne White sounds familiar, but I think she only did the beginning episodes. Come on. Um, Toby Haynes
Toby Haynes. I didn't think it was
directed
him.
this
Okay,
episode.
fair. The one I
So
thought didn't do it.
and sorry, y'all. Um, so they're going in arcs kind of along the same lines with a companion script author and then a director. So Bo Willimon is writing the what looks like going to be the whole prison arc, and Toby Haynes is directing all of those episodes. um Susanna White did the Aldani episodes, and then Toby Haynes and Tony Gilroy did the opening episodes.
Okay.
And it looks like Benjamin Karen and Tony Gilroy will do the last two episodes. So but I loved this episode. I thought it was really well done. The whole there's just tension building the entire episode, and oh my gosh, the musical cues and some of the cuts were fantastic.
Yeah, it's called Nobody's Listening, and you mentioned that was very apt because there's several times where it does feel like characters are not being listened to. I agree. This episode was fantastic. The tension was it was there were times when it was hard to watch. Like it was so tense, just so many scenes, and it's just like every single storyline or group of characters we're following, it's like they would leave them and I'd be disappointed because I want more of them. But then I like the next group so much. So it's like just bouncing around from great storyline to great storyline. This episode, I don't know. I feel like it's the fourth or fifth time I've thought, no, this is the best one so far.
Yep. Because that's what I feel like that's what I've said the past two episodes. It is just like, oh yeah, this is really good. And then it's like, oh wait, no, there's more. um, I thought I know he's not a main character in this technically, but Andy Serkis I thought did an incredible job kind of playing that villain, not necessarily a villain, but like almost an anti-hero where he was like, I don't really want to help you. I just want to do my own thing and get out, and I want everyone to behave.
Yeah, he wants to serve his time. What was it, 217 days left, I think, or rotations left,
Yeah.
and just he wants to serve his time and get out and make as little waves as possible. Play by the book. He believes that like if he does what he's supposed to do, he's gonna get out and have a happy life, and you can't blame him for feeling that way. He has no evidence to the contrary at this point when he's having these discussions. I had no idea Andy Serkis was in this. I know, like you guys said, it was mentioned in the past at one point. I've heard other people saying, "Oh yeah, that was announced a long time ago." Well, I forgot. I missed it.
I
And
did
when
too.
he popped up, I was just like, "Oh, that's awesome." I mean, do I believe he's Snoke? I guess I don't, but maybe there's clues that I don't know that I'm missing. But regardless, playing the character he is playing, I'm really glad he's been in this. He's been a lot of fun.
He has, and it just gives me hope kind of that maybe like Lupita will be able to come back because she played Maz Kanata, but she was motion capture as well. So she could easily come back as her own character and be um more used on screen to a better point than what
Yes,
Maz was.
yes,
So I love that. And he did an interview with Vanity Fair about coming back to the Star Wars universe, and it sounds like he had a lot of fun um with it. So that's really good. And I'm hoping he stays alive to the point where we can get him back for season 2.
yes, very, very much so. I mean, I'm like, well, he wasn't in Rogue One, so maybe he could just stay alive. Period. I don't know. There's a shot, but with this particular cast of characters, it does feel like you can't get attached to any of them because eventually nobody's gonna make it.
Right, because Melshi dies uh in Rogue One
Hmm.
on I can't remember the planet. Oh my gosh. He dies in Rogue One. So we know some of them are going to stick around, but they're not all going to live. Obviously
Right.
Cassian. So okay. So we mainly play back and forth between Bix and Cassian. And Bix, as of last episode, was captured and is set up for interrogation by ISB supervisor Deidre Miro, as well as her counterparts. And then we have Cassian, who's still on Narkina 5. Um, and he's just working, but he's also trying to escape. He's working with some of the other prisoners, like analyzing guard movements and what happens when new people come down. And then there's even a shot of him in the bathroom, and he busts open a panel and is like using a filing board to like cut a cable. So that's just a kind of general placement for where we set off.
Yeah,
Um,
I really wanted to know about that cable. Like, what was his plan with that? Because maybe we'll find out next week. But like right now, things got derailed pretty heavily, and he only had a few seconds with that before he had to go back on program and get back out there with everybody else.
Yeah, and there's no door on that bathroom either, so it's like, okay, you gotta just get in and out, and you gotta hope nobody comes in after you.
Yeah, I mean, no privacy there at all in this jail. So like they're used to
Mhm.
it, but at the same time, you're right. You got to be quick with that stuff because someone could see you at any time.
Yep. All right. So I need to tackle Bix first because Bix was the most heartbreaking part of this
Mm-hmm.
episode. Um, and so she is basically interrogated, and you think back to A New Hope where Darth Vader brings in the torture droid on Princess Leia, and you're like, oh, okay, that's what's about to happen. No, they bring in basically alien children's cries for help, and they stick that on her, and we don't hear the children crying or anything. But we do hear Bix screaming less than 15 seconds after it's put on her. Um, and that, like, it chilled me.
Yeah, she's forced to listen to the dying screams of what they believe were children. And they, had early tests with this sound and did not go well for the test subjects. So they think they've got it figured out, but they even tell her, like repeat exposure is really where the damage comes. So you're going to give me all the information you have. You're going to tell us everything we want to know, everything that you know. And ultimately, I mean, it seems to have worked. They seem to have gotten the information they needed out of her.
Yeah. And yeah, because we can't imagine what Bix ended up going through. And honestly, like just seeing her in the chair and like with Deidre in front of her, grabbing her face, especially after, uh, like hearing the cries, it was just shocking and shuddering, and it makes you really think. But uh, some of those choices of how to cut and how to angle in on Bix's face, um, were really impressive by the cinematographer and probably Gilroy and the showrunners, but also the director. So major props to that because Matt and I were like, "Oh my gosh, that was such a good cut," and
Mm-hmm.
like the music, especially in like kid the torture scenes. God, I hate it. I hate it so much. That's why I hate like I loved this episode, but I also really hate it because of the reason I hate episode 5 for Star Wars. I hate seeing people tortured. It sucks.
I mean, it's hard to watch, and maybe it'll be easier for you upon rewatches because you know what's coming. But when you don't know what's coming, yeah, it's hard to watch.
Yeah. Um So she gives the information up, and Deidre ends up back on Coruscant. And she reports back to the major and just kind of gives all the information she has. But we also find out that they were able to nab a rebel pilot who was using part of the stolen equipment that Deidre had made a list of. And they brought him in, interrogated him, and um, they were able to find a potential attack that's about to happen on a power plant on what was the planet? I don't remember. I was like I literally finished watching this right before we were originally about to start at 7 before.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have a lot of time to look things up, so sorry y'all, but no. So they kind of have a plan for that, and we will probably see the ramifications of that next week. But Deidre has another interaction with um, Cyril Cyril Karn, who, as we well know, is in the Bureau of Records, and he ended up getting a promotion after his interrogation, but he's been stalking Deidre to let her know how much of a light she is to him.
Yeah, that was super awkward, right? Like he just stops her in the middle like she's just trying to walk into the office. And at one point he grabbed her arm. I thought she was going to lay him out when he did that
Yeah.
remarkable restraint on her part. That frankly she shouldn't have had to show, he should not have grabbed her like that. But I know Cyril has been a very polarizing character. I have grown to like him more and more as the series has progressed, and I really do enjoy his interactions with Deidre. But he did come off a little bit like a lovesick puppy, if you will, in this particular episode. Like he's trying to get her approval. That's all he wants. He wants her help to let him like trying to use her to move up the ranks and get back going after Andor and stuff. But he just wants her approval so much, and she's just like, no, I got what I wanted out of you, leave me alone. You're lucky that we cleared you of charges.
Yeah. It's so creepy, and it just kind of reminds you like what everything's going on. I also thought it was a neat parallel to show Deidre's dark side torturing Bix, but then also still bring her back to Coruscant and have this not necessarily a weakness pop up, but like show a different side of her by showing a psycho stalking her. We don't know if Cyril's a psycho, but it was just like, yeah,
He
no,
certainly
thank you.
feels like he's heading that direction if he's not already.
Yeah. Clay has popped in the chat and he said that man's mother is unbearable. And yes, I think we all agree.
I mean, she is, but she's supposed to be. So it's like
Yep.
I even kind of like her. Like no, like I don't. She's annoying, but she's meant to be annoying. She's the overbearing mom. Oh, you got promoted. Uncle Harlow's going to be so proud, and just like putting him down the whole time until he got some promotions, and now suddenly she's happy with him again. She's not winning any best mom competitions, that's for sure.
Oh no, absolutely not. So that's kind of That's kind of really all we get. Oh no, I take that back. We do get Mon Mothma in this episode.
Yes.
And she makes a speech trying to get senators to reconsider the public safety order that came out 2 episodes ago after the Aldani incident. But then she heads back to her apartments and she finds her sister, her cousin. I missed what it was.
They said it was her cousin, but I didn't. I don't know if that was one of those like, like your first cousin, like your mom and her mom are sisters, or was it like one of those generic? We're all family. Where everybody's cousin. But they said it was your cousin is there, and she was clearly surprised at this, and I thought she almost seemed upset at it at first. But when she actually sees her, she didn't seem too upset once she saw her in person.
Yeah. And I have to wonder if maybe it's because she knows the driver's ISB and she knows what Vel is, because Vel is the cousin, and she doesn't want Vel caught by the ISB.
Right.
I have to wonder if that's why she was more on the shocked side of things.
I mean, every single interaction that she has with someone, you feel like she's playing an angle, even when
Mhm.
it's with her friend who's helping her with the banking stuff, or with her daughter or her husband, or the senators where nobody was listening. It seems like every single thing she does, she's playing an angle, and she has to because look, she's part of the rebellion and she's at the heart of the empire.
Mhm. Yeah. And we get some good parallels because Tay Colma comes back in, the friend who's helping her with the banking stuff. He tells her that she's kind of SOL on the money she's trying to move because she's moved it, but now she doesn't have a reason for that money to have moved. So she needs to get it back in her accounts before an auditor picks it up. And he brings up a name that doesn't make her very happy, and mm, anyways,
That name didn't mean anything to me. It sounded like it was just your local gangster, or you're almost like a bookie or something. And it's not a name I had heard before.
Davo Skolden is the name. And yeah, it looks like that doesn't have any previous reference in Star Wars. Because there was a lot of things that made me want to go, oh, okay, is that something we've heard before in like Legends or something? And they're bringing up another Easter egg. Uh, it doesn't look like that, but Mon Mothma was not happy about that. He's a dangerous loan shark, as all in the game has popped in the chat to say. And he plays both sides, is what it looks like. He wants to meet Mon Mothma in her apartments, and Mon Mothma's like, I can't bring him here. I'm going to get caught. And it doesn't look like she has another option though.
Yeah, and you were telling me like other times we've seen Mon Mothma throughout the Star Wars canon and almost saw her and stuff, but I'm still like I don't remember everything that happens with her after this. So I'm like I don't know what happens to her character between like here and the end of Rogue One, for example.
So the biggest thing that happens to Mon Mothma after um the Andor episodes right now is the Gorman massacre, which we've gotten sprinkles of that laid um in basically the Gorman, like right now the Gorman people have shipping lanes blocked because they're protesting over imperial taxes. And so the Gorman massacre originally was in 2 BBY and Star Wars Legends. And in that case, Tarkin was trying to land on the planet, and the Gorman people were staging a sit in and decided to block his ship from landing, theoretically, by sitting on his landing pad. And Tarkin said, no, I'm going to land, and landed anyways, causing hundreds of casualties,
Well,
and made it known as the Gorman Massacre.
that'll do it. I mean, jeez, good
Yeah.
lord.
And so Star Wars canon has now brought that incident back in, but they've moved it in the timeline to the back end of Star Wars, like this 19 year time frame between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, because we know the Gorman massacre takes place in 2 BBY. I said 2 BBY for Legends. I meant 17.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Um so 2 BBY, 2 years before A New Hope versus 2 years after Revenge of the Sith. And that is the place where Mon Mothma becomes a vocal leader of the rebellion instead of playing in the shadows.
Okay.
So she
Okay.
publicly outs herself as a member of the rebellion, and Palpatine at that point then sends people to arrest her, which is where Rebels comes in because they rescue her and get her to safety. The Ghost Crew does. So that's kind of what takes place for her between now and Rogue One.
I may have to pull those Rebel episodes back up and watch it. I've only seen them one time, and it's been a couple years at this point.
And, I really want to go back through them and watch them after Andor gets done. We have a nice break. I may throw those in.
There
Who
you go.
knows? Um, so yes, so those happen. And the episode for reference, by the way, in Rebels, if anyone wants to go look up the specific one, is Secret Cargo, and I think that's in season 3. So, um, so Mon Mothma and Vel kind of talk, and Vel Mon Mothma wants Vel to go back to Chandrilla and kind of play up her spoiled rich girl vibes. She hasn't married a man yet because we know she's only interested in Cinta right now, and Perrin makes a point of that. And it's like, oh well, you're gonna have to find a widower now. Nobody else is gonna be good enough.
Yeah.
And we're all kind of like, so she can't out herself, probably for her own, well, most definitely for her own safety. But we don't know how Chandrila acts towards um lesbians and gay people. So sorry y'all, I'm off my game tonight.
I liked it when Mon asked her about Luthen. Like, what does he have you doing? She didn't name him, but she's like,
Yep.
what does he have you doing? What are you working on? And of course, she doesn't answer the question. She basically just dodges it. But I guess speaking of Luthen, if I had to give one real downer for this episode, was we did not get an appearance by him this week.
I know, and the appearances he's made since like the middle of Aldani, probably right after it,
Mm-hmm.
have been rather short. It's like a minute, 2 minute scenes. Um, but they're impactful because Stellan Skarsgård's just playing the character really
So
fucking well.
good. Yes. Yes. Yeah, so I guess that'd be my one big negative of this week's episode that I really enjoyed so much is would have liked to have seen more of him. I really enjoy seeing him and Mon Mothma basically in his store, pretending, but she's just shopping for a present for her husband. But the way they're able to both act with double speak, undercover and stuff, while at the same time making it clear what they're talking about. I really enjoyed those scenes. So hopefully he's back next week.
Yeah, I hope he is too. And I imagine, especially with where the ISB ends up kind of tracking Cassian down. Oh, he was there for his mother and then he left. They may find out he's in prison, and we have to see like this ending episode for this arc. Maybe Cassian's trying to escape. At the same point, ISB's on the way to grab him and interrogate him. So.
Yeah, you keep expecting them to like figure out that they already have him. Like she's looking for him, and it's like he's yours. You have him in custody. You just have him by the wrong name, so you don't know it.
Yeah. And there's the one moment where Bix where the ISB is kind of reporting to the major and is like, Cassian was clean shaven when Bix saw him, and they know the Aldani members of the crew who robbed them were clean shaven, and that two of the guards that were on Aldani said that one of the rebels looked like Cassian based on the reference photo they have, but the reference photo of him is with a beard. So it's hard to identify it, and you know what that made me think of?
What's that?
Cavill getting photoshopped with no beard.
Oh my god! I didn't say it. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. But that was an interesting scene. I really enjoy those scenes where basically Deidre is showing how much smarter she is than everyone else in that room, other than maybe the major. But the smartest thing he does is recognize her intelligence and her skill at what she's doing. And it was interesting when that guy stepped up from the background. It's like, oh, he was clean shaven. I'm like, I think you're talking out of turn, buddy. Like, I don't think you're supposed to be speaking to
No.
everyone right now. I'm a little surprised they let him walk out of there. But ultimately,
Did you just go out? Did you just hit your mute?
all right, yep, I'm back.
Okay.
But so I was surprised they showed took that guy out of turn, showed him going speaking out of turn, and then they let him get away with it. So I mean, they show him later in the episode talking with her again. So I guess she wasn't too upset, but it just kind of surprised me in the moment.
Yeah. Hey, it worked out in her favor.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of pointing that out. So, okay. So we've kind of talked about where Cassian was at. And the older guy, um,
Olaf.
who's working on his crew, Ulfa?
I think it was Olaf, wasn't it?
Olaf. Yeah, you're right. So Olaf is clearly having, I was like, oh, okay, he's having like dementia problems.
That's what I thought it
Um,
was too. Yeah.
and because you see it's basically spaced out over a couple shifts is the time frame for the Cassian parts of this episode, and you see him like struggling with his hands, but he's also struggling with his memory. But then um and in that time frame, Cassian is asking Kino, and Kino is played by Andy Serkis. Cassian's asking Kino how many guards are there on each level. What do we need to know to get out of here? And Kino's like, you need to be careful, man. Like, I just want to get out of here, like we kind of talked about. And Cassian's like, nobody's listening.
Mm-hmm.
Who they're not going to care. We have to do this kind of thing. And then we find out that something happened on level 2, and it draws up an uproar between all of the levels, and you can see everyone kind of communicating while they're in the tunnels with the hand signals, which I kind of like. It reminds me of sign language, and I think that's a good inclusionary aspect here.
Absolutely. They're trying to communicate that way anyway, but they also make the point of saying like the signals are unreliable and it takes days and weeks to actually get hard like even one word from one of the other levels to them, but they're trying and everybody's kind of panicking and yeah, and the scene that you mentioned where Andor's like it was interesting because in last week's episode we see him going into the prison and we see him 30 rotations later and he's still being mostly quiet even though he knows what his job is, he's doing his job, but he's being mostly quiet, whereas this point we don't know how much longer it's been. He's actively like pumping that guy for information. How many
Yeah.
guards are there? How many guards are there? I asked him so many times, and he's like, "No, I'm not going to answer this. I'm not risking it." And you say they don't, the walls don't have ears, but I think they do, and I'm not about to get shocked over this and have more time put on my bid.
Yep. And at points Kino's right, but also Cassian's right because Cassian's like, I shouldn't be here. I mean, he literally had no interaction with the people on the vacation ward who were doing
Mm-hmm.
the vacation planet who were doing rebel activities, and he was just picked up off the street.
Given six
And so he's
years,
like,
which
I
used
need
to
to
be
get out of
6
here.
months. Yeah, like they're like, well, it used to be an easier sentence, but you're screwed now. And like there was the person last week who said, and I didn't catch his name, but he's like, don't even look at how many days you have left because it doesn't matter. And they said they had just doubled everybody's days prior to that anyway.
Yeah. And so we find out Olaf had a stroke, a massive stroke, and that's why he kind of collapses and has been having the issues with his hands. They do pull a medic down, and their Kino and Cassian are with Olaf in the tunnel, and a guard comes in with the medic. And this was probably the most chilling scene because they've been trying to find out what happened on level 2, and the medic is basically like, he's not going to make it, and basically gives him a shot to kind of end his misery, end his suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And Cassian, while this is happening, is like, do you know what happened on level 2? What happened? And the guard at this point is like, they don't need to be here. Like, what's going on? And the medic's like, they're helping me. And so the medic tells Kino, you need to get your man under control. And Kino's like, what happened on level 2? He's finally getting the curiosity and trying to figure out, okay, maybe this is a lot more serious. And I need to find out what happened. And so the medic, because Kino asked, is like, they accidentally sent a guy who was supposed to be free from level 4 and they sent him down to level 2. And people found out and they killed the whole, basically both shifts in a room.
Yeah, oh, this guy was released, and then he turns up on level 2. And I'll be honest, at first I was like, oh, they captured him again, like he just got out, and then
Mm-hmm.
he suddenly, and then it occurred to me, I'm like, no, wait a minute. I rewound it, and I realized, no, I misunderstood. They never released him. They just took him from level 2 or from level 4, threw him in level 2, said he was new. Obviously, he must have said something and spoke up about it. And yeah, they just wipe them all out. So, of course, Cassian's level and all the other levels are all just freaking out over this because they all think they're just all going to get killed over it. They're trying to pretend they don't know anything is happening. And it was a hard scene to watch when Olaf was killed and stuff. Where I shouldn't say killed. I mean, technically it was mercy, but when he died, it was a difficult scene to watch. But that ending,
Yep.
wow, like that
The
ending was so
ending.
badass.
Cassian, they walk off and they're in the position with their hands above their head. And Cassian asks again, how many guards on each level? And Kino says 12.
Yep, no more than 12. This time he gets his answer. So now okay, next week it's on. He's now got Kino, the guy in charge of his entire shift. He now has him working with him, like working towards their
Yes.
escape.
And like the cliffhangers and the cuts for Andor have just been so well done. And again, I have to give props to the director Toby Haynes for managing some of these cuts from character scenes to character scenes, like switching off, because it's so badass watching them happen live and going, oh wow. Like I was really like you said, I was wanting to get more into that character story, but we go to the next scene and we're like, oh yeah, I'm enveloped. Like, give me more. And
Yeah,
then it
I
happens all over again.
when this show started, I did not know if I was going to get commit to getting up and watching it before work every week. And then I watched it that first week. 3 episodes came out, and I could only watch one or two of them. I don't remember how many in the morning. But since then, I've been able to keep up with it, and I'm just like, nope, okay, I got to do it. I got to get up and watch it. Like I don't want to get spoiled. I want to know what's going to happen, and I don't follow too many Star Wars things on social media, so it's a little easier for me to avoid spoilers that way. Basically, I just don't listen to a podcast yet until I'm current and I'm good. But I still like I was like I gotta know. I'm gonna talk about it with David at work. I gotta know. I want to know what's happening, and it oh my god, there's only 3 left, but it's been so good. So I gotta say though, they're gonna pick one series to go 12 episodes for. I'm glad it was this one. The way they're doing this, breaking it up into the different little mini arcs and stuff, it has just been so compelling through these 9 episodes.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that they've already confirmed season 2 is going to have 12
Mm-hmm.
episodes to do a very similar arc method. Um, and because it's just, like you said, it's been so well done. But the guys who were on last week brought up a very good point that the arcs are really only happening for Cassian, but everybody else is kind of going through things on their own. Everything's kind of the same for them, but Cassian's going through first the kind of introductory things, and then Aldani, and then we kind of get a little break to get us switched over, and then now this prison arc. So, and it's been so fantastic. Really reminds me of Golden Days, not net, like good like Clone Wars arcs. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because Clone Wars did the same thing where it was like 3, 4 episodes for a single storyline, and I did not watch Clone Wars live when it aired. I watched it after the fact. I can't imagine waiting on those episodes week to week for some of those arcs like we're doing with Andor. It's driving me insane.
Was it 7, the final season was the
Yeah,
only season that I saw any of it live, and even that was only like the last 4 episodes, which
yeah.
that was still quite the wait for those episodes. But
Yes.
I everything else prior to that was out by the time I even started watching Clone Wars, and I people were like, oh, you got to watch it in this order or that order. I'm like, I'm watching it in whatever Disney Plus order is, so I can keep track of where I'm at. And no, I didn't always get when they jumped forward or backwards in the timeline, but I'm sure I would understand it more on a rewatch because I'm more familiar with all the characters now. But you're right, like comparing the way they're doing Andor with this, with the different arcs, it is very similar, just with the difference of Clone Wars. It'd be like this arc is about Anakin, and the next arc is about C-3PO or something like that. Like it'd be totally
Yeah.
different group, and then follow an arc by the with about Rex and the clones. Whereas this is still all about Andor because it's his show. It's just also it is like you've talked about, kind of an ensemble show at the same time. At least it feels like one, which isn't
Yeah.
a bad thing. But just whatever they're doing with this, I'm like, yes. When is season 2? I'm already looking forward to season 2. If this season ends for me anywhere close to as good as I think these first 9 episodes have been, I I don't know. This is definitely going to be a big shakeup on my personal Star Wars rankings because I am loving
Mhm.
this.
Awesome. I'm glad you're loving it.
Yes.
No, I really am enjoying this. And this arc has kind of made it feel more like Star Wars because we're seeing some of the droids. We're getting some of the unorthodox, say unorthodox, I don't know. The prison scene looks very or unorthodox, like doesn't look normal.
You're right. I'm a little surprised there hasn't been more like aliens in this prison,
Yeah.
which I know has been a hang up for some people. And you're right. Like there hasn't been the emphasis on droids and aliens and stuff, or I guess I mean they're all aliens, so non-humanoids, whatever. But I am a little surprised at that. But maybe it's just a case of like there's other prisons for other alien races, and this one is just specifically designed for humanoids and to keep them in check, to keep them fed, to let their very very basic needs be met, and it just wouldn't work with an alien. I don't know. That's my headcanon anyway.
Yeah. And I do agree. We need more aliens. I think the beach planet was the most aliens we've gotten in
Probably,
like a
yeah.
single episode. Um, but that is the thing, and I guess maybe the budget went more into developing sets because this is a more set-based show, less no volume actually. They use traditional sets, and then live locations. So maybe that money went towards those versus having aliens present. I don't know.
You like what was the planet he started on? Is it Ferrix? Like
Clerics.
I get the impression from all the scenes on there that like it's not exactly a fun place to visit, like it's not your tourist destination like we saw later in the show. So it's like unless they had a very specific, most likely business related reason to be there, like why would alien creatures come to it? They're not native to that planet. So you can kind of chalk it up to that. I feel like because you would think that there would be more planets that were specifically segregated out based on, because like some planets, sure, the whole mix them all together, uh, you know glorified cantina scene but on the planetary level, whereas others would be more segregated and stuff. So I think it works because it's like this show in a vacuum. But like if all of the Disney Plus shows were doing that, like if Kenobi we didn't see anything else, and Mando and Boba we didn't see any other kinds of races, then I think it would really be kind of weird.
Yeah, I can kind of agree with you with Ferrix, but I think with Coruscant, and I
Yeah,
know we've been mostly
Coruscant being like
focused,
the capital and stuff. Yeah, that's a good point.
yeah, and I get being focused mostly on Luthen and then Mon Mothma, but you'd think, okay, we see enough people walking around in the background, let's throw an alien or three in there. I don't know. So,
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
so final thoughts on this episode.
They nailed it. They nailed it. Like just final thoughts. Like I get to that cliffhanger, and like I knew it had been long enough. The episode was about over, but I'm like, no, I need the next one. So I mean, what better praise is there for a show than when they get to the end of the hook? You're like, I don't want to wait a week to watch the next one. I want the next one. But I maintain the weekly model is the best model. So I'm still going to do it this
Absolutely.
way.
Absolutely. Just some thoughts from people who dropped in the chat. Clay dropped in before the stream, but he said, "Love the episode, and my only hope for the complete chaos I feel is about to go down is that I hope Snoke, aka Kino Andy Serkis, makes it out alive."
I agree.
Yep. David came on and was like, "Such a great episode of Andor this week. All in the Game said, best writing in all live action Star Wars for me, the Gilroy brothers, Beau Willimon, and Stephen Schiff is one hell of a writer's room. Shame there's people out there who can't engage with it because there's no lightsabers, Skywalkers, Jedi, etc."
Yeah, I mean, I I like the lightsabers a lot too. Don't get me wrong. Like I really do
Yep.
like seeing like there is something really awesome about watching a couple lightsabers get popped off and but it's the diversity is good for the shows as well. For the it expands the universe more than just lightsabers.
Yep. If you want lightsabers right now, y'all, you're missing out if you are not reading The High Republic. I'm gonna tell you that right now. Um, Wave 1 for High Republic kicked it off really strong. And I can't wait for people to read Convergence because Convergence is badass. So, um, I'll leave it at that. We will be back next week, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Clay is making his Star Wars debut back after his paternity leave.
Yes.
Finally for a live episode. So, but Sunday we are dropping our Quest for the Hidden City review, which is the middle grade book written by George Mann, for Wave 1 of the High Republic, Phase 2. So, that is what you can expect from us. Just keep an eye on Twitter for schedule details week to week. Because right now we're kind of in a little bit of a limbo. So, um, yeah, Brent, tell us where they can find you.
Yeah, Brentak Prime, Twitter and TikTok, co-host of Marvel Alliance here on the GUA. We should probably mention that this weekend is the Geekverse charity
Oh
stream.
yes, you're right. I'm
So
sorry. I'm hosting Star Wars trivia.
I will be probably missing questions to Star Wars trivia, but I am participating. So I'm on Team Travis, but I'll do my best. I'll do my best. I'm looking forward to it. It's always a lot of fun. So the trivia part specifically is Saturday evening, but they're going to be there all day on Saturday. So
Yep.
definitely check that out.
Absolutely, they're raising money for Extra Life, which is a focus on children's hospitals in Canada. The goal is to raise $3,500 this year. So I hope we make it. Um, and yeah, they will be here all day Saturday, and you can make sure to check it out here on YouTube. And I'm sure a couple things will be dropped maybe in podcast streams next week, so you can check that out. But yeah, trivia is at 9 p.m. Eastern Saturday, right here. I will be going second. So it's going to be Marvel, Star Wars, DC, because I have a football game that I have to return to at some point. Uh, so, y'all, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. It's at Slice of Katie. This show on Twitter, it's at Star Wars Alliance without the A. And the war is very important. Don't forget it. My other show on the GUA Podcast Network is on Twitter. It's at Slice of Film One. And next up for that show is the Addams Family. We just dropped Edward Scissorhands, and that was the first time I had seen that. The Addams Family, I've also never seen, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. But you can find out in 2 weeks. So, with that, I want to wish everyone a good day or night, whatever time of day you are listening or watching, and we will see y'all next time. May the force be with you.